Social dislocations also resulted from periodic pestilence and disease, going back at least to the Black Death of 1348 to 1350, which disrupted lives and institutions across the continent.
The Black Death was one of the most fatal disease epidemics in recorded history, which caused the death of more than 50 million people in Europe, or upwards of 50% of the continent's population. And so pay attention to how they named it. The Black Death, right? And so this was a catastrophic event which was interpreted in many ways by religious people, which would eventually lead to other consequences down the road, as we'll see as we continue reading in the book Race in North America by Dr. Audrey Smedley.
In the absence of a scientific understanding of epidemic diseases and methods to combat them, such crises called forth supernatural explanations and supernatural supplications.
They didn't have the technology that we have today to help us better understand disease, and more importantly, to create solutions to help keep those diseases under control. And so because they were ignorant in this department, they explained the cause of the Black Death in the best way that they knew, which was saying that God or some supernatural being was responsible for doing it, right? That's all they had, and that's all they could work with.
No institution was more suitable to deal with this than the church. With growing competition and proto-nationalistic conflicts among the various nations of Europe, the English, like other Europeans, often found it critical to establish political and/or commercial alliances predicated on religious affiliation.
In other words, they used religion as a tool to compete and gain power in that competitive environment.
Thus, whether one was Catholic, Protestant, or some variant thereof, was usually the key not only to identity of others, but also to how they were to be treated.
And as we keep going, you're going to see why these variants were the key to identity and how other people were treated.
Another factor underscoring the importance of religious attachment was the existence of an atmosphere thick with the belief in and fear of witchcraft.
Another name for witchcraft is black magic, which is using secret energy, knowledge, or power with the intention of harming someone, right? And so this is basically what the colonizers used when they conquered all the other peoples around the world and they rearranged their entire reality in a destructive way, right? Those were black magicians, but obviously they're not going to call themselves that, and neither would most of the people who practice their craft in this manner.
Anthropologists have long observed that in times of tumultuous social, political, and economic disorder, devastating warfare, or massive and inexplicable natural disasters, human beings often turn to some form of witchcraft to help explain the turmoil, restore some sense of order and stability, and regain control of their lives and natural phenomena. From about the 12th century on, Europeans began paying much closer attention to and showing greater concern with witches and their activities. This trend reached a crescendo in the 15th century as various sects began to break from the Roman Church and devise their own theologies and measures of the faith. Although all of the Protestant groups were opposed to the alleged oppressive nature of the Roman Church, and especially to the Inquisition, they retained much of the underlying theological, historical, and scriptural beliefs.
So the Protestants, they broke away from the Roman Church, but they still held on to much of the doctrine and the scriptural belief. And so let's find out one of these beliefs that they held on to.
One of these beliefs concerned the nature of the devil and how he manifests himself.
They kept the belief of the imaginary character from the Bible called the devil and how he manifests himself in the physical world.
Christian tradition has it that the devil is the Antichrist, the incarnation of all evil, who was in mortal combat with the forces of good to win men's souls.
The devil is supposed to be part of the force that opposes all things that are good. But the question is, what is good, and what determines what good is, and who determined what good is, right? One person's good is another person's evil, right? It was a good thing in the eyes of the colonizers to conquer and kill the native inhabitants who worshipped a different god, but it was an evil thing in the eyes of those who were conquered, right? And so who was the devil in this situation, right? It's a matter of an opinion, and more specifically of the opinion of whoever is controlling the narrative, right? And so this is what makes the devil such a useful tool, as we'll continue seeing.
The devil has the ability to enter men's and women's bodies and make compacts with individuals to carry out malevolent aims. Thus, one knew the existence of this evil force by the behavior and actions of those individuals in league with the devil.
In other words, if one group has rules and beliefs and another group or person does things that are contrary to those rules and beliefs that are established, then he hath a devil, right? That's how they use this as a tool, right? And you have to stop sleepwalking And you have to get hip to it because that's how they have always used the idea of the devil as a tool.
If Christianity created the devil, it also prescribed means of reckoning with this evil through obedience and living an exemplary life, prayer and the intervention of the Holy Mother, and more directly, the sign of the cross or the use of holy water.
Look at what Dr. Audrey Smedley knows that the people in the pulpit and people in position of power will never tell you, and that's that Christianity created the devil, right? It's super obvious when you're on the outside looking in. And since they created the devil, they also have created the ways to avoid the devil, and that's by obedience, right? And following their belief and their God, right? So this stuff is super obvious when you're looking at it for what it is.
A good Christian theoretically could not be harmed by the courtship of the devil. One's reputation as a good Christian was a major protection against being accused of witchcraft. Those who were not Christians often became identified with the devil, with evil and sinfulness.
You see that? This is one of the aspects of the Bible and Christianity that has given them the potential to be very dangerous. You see, most religions outside of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, they don't have concepts like this where people who are outside of their faith are looked at as such evil people. But the Bible, it unmistakably promotes such ideas. And when you understand this, then you could easily see and understand why the Bible was such a useful tool in the hand of the colonizers.
This sense of identity was solidified in most of Europe, and it helps to explain why relationships between Europeans and the indigenous peoples whom they colonized often became so harsh and cruel. As we shall see later, when heathens were perceived to be as wicked as, or agents of, the devil, then there needs to be no moral restraints against brutalizing or killing them.
Okay, so I want to thank you for watching all the way until the end. My name is Brooklyn St. Michael, and I'll see you in the free world.